The scream wasn't loud. It was muffled, broken, and soaked in pain. Ethan Grayson froze at the bottom of the staircase. It was coming from the service corridor, the one that led to the kitchen. His heart pounded, the air suddenly too still for his mansion's usual quiet. He followed the sound, every step heavy with dread. As he turned the corner, his world stopped. His wife, Victoria, flawless, elegant, and cruelly composed, stood with her hand raised. And on the marble floor, trembling, was their black maid. Rosa, her wrist was bleeding, her eyes wide and wet. A shattered glass lay beside her. What are you doing? Ethan's voice cracked. Victoria turned slowly, her face calm, almost indifferent. She spilled wine on my dress, she said, as if explaining a broken vase. Ethan looked at Rosa, shaking, whispering something he couldn't hear. The soft, terrified sound of her voice made his stomach twist. Get out, he said to his wife. Excuse me. Now, Victoria, for the first time in years, she saw fury in his eyes, not the cold kind he used in business meetings. This was real. Human. Rosa tried to stand, her hands trembling as she picked up the glass shards. I'm sorry, sir. It was my fault. Stop. Ethan knelt beside her, carefully taking the pieces from her hand. You're bleeding. Victoria rolled her eyes. Oh, please, don't make a scene over a clumsy servant. Rosa flinched at the word servant. Her breath caught, her lips trembling as she whispered. She didn't like how I looked at her. I didn't mean. Enough. Ethan's voice echoed through the marble halls. Go upstairs. Victoria, right now. The silence that followed was suffocating. Victoria crossed her arms. You're defending her, a maid. Ethan turned to her slowly. I'm defending a human being. Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of fear behind her arrogance. She stormed out, heels clicking against the floor like tiny gunshots. Rosa stood frozen, tears streaking her face. Sir, please don't fire me. I need this job. I can't lose it. Ethan shook his head gently. You're not the one who should be afraid. He led her to the sitting room, fetched a first aid kit, and silently began cleaning her wounds. His hands trembled slightly as he wrapped the bandage around her wrist. Why didn't you tell me? He finally asked. Rosa hesitated. Because people don't believe girls like me, especially not when it's someone like her. Her voice broke. Ethan looked at her, really looked, and saw the quiet strength she'd carried all this time. Later that night, while the rain beat against the mansion windows, Ethan stood in his study, staring at a photo, the day he'd married Victoria. They looked perfect, but he couldn't unsee what he'd witnessed. He pulled out his phone, opened the security feed, and began scrolling through the past week's footage. His stomach churned as he watched the truth unfold. Victoria had humiliated Rosa for days. She'd spilled food on purpose, insulted her skin, mocked her accent, all while smiling, like it amused her. The next morning, Rosa wasn't at work. Her small room was empty. A folded note lay on the bed. Thank you for being kind, sir. Please don't worry. I'll be fine. Ethan's hand shook as he read it. No, he whispered. He ran out, grabbed his car keys, and drove through the storm. He found her hours later, sitting under a bridge, soaked and shivering, hugging her bag close. Rosa, he called out. She turned, startled, fear flickering in her eyes before recognition softened it. Mr. Grayson, why are you here? He stepped out into the rain. Because I should have protected you sooner. She looked down. You don't have to. People like me, we don't belong in houses like yours. He shook his head, voice breaking. No, people like my wife don't deserve to be in houses like mine. They stood there in silence, the rain washing over them. Finally, Ethan took off his coat and draped it over her shoulders. Come home, he said softly. Not as my maid, but as someone who deserves respect. Rosa hesitated. What about her? He looked away. She won't hurt anyone again. When they returned, Victoria was waiting in the living room, drink in hand, defiant as ever. You brought her back. She laughed coldly. You've lost your mind. Ethan stepped closer, his tone low and steady. No, Victoria, I finally found it. He picked up the divorce papers already lying on the table. She froze. You planned this? I reviewed the footage, he said quietly. I saw everything, every cruel word, every slap, every tear. Her face drained of color. You can't. He cut her off. I can, and I will. Rosa stood near the doorway, silent, her eyes wide. She couldn't believe someone was standing up for her, not out of pity, but justice. Victoria tried to smile, but her voice trembled. This will ruin you. Ethan looked at her coldly. If defending kindness ruins me, then I deserve it. The weeks that followed were brutal in the headline. Billionaire files for divorce after domestic abuse. Scandal. But Ethan didn't care. For the first time, he felt free. He offered Rosa a new home. Not as an employee, but as the manager of his charity foundation. She hesitated at first, overwhelmed. Why me? She asked. Because you taught me something, he said quietly. That silence can be as cruel as violence. Rosa smiled faintly, tears glistening in her eyes. I just wanted to survive. He nodded. Now you'll live. Months later, during a charity dinner hosted in the same mansion, the air was different. Warm, peaceful. Rosa stood at the podium, addressing the crowd. I once worked here as a maid, she began softly. Now, I work here to protect others from what I went through, because no one deserves to be treated as less than human. Applause filled the room. Ethan, watching from the corner, felt something shift inside him. Not pride, but gratitude. Later, as guests left and the lights dimmed, he approached Rosa by the window. You were brave that day, he said. She looked up at him. No, sir. You were, he smiled gently. Ethan. Just Ethan. They stood there in silence as the city lights flickered beyond the glass. Because in that moment, they both knew the truth. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about choosing kindness when cruelty was easier. Moral: hate divides, but kindness heals. No heart is truly rich until it learns to protect the powerless.